The team needs to be cut by 20% by the end of this quarter. Brandon stated, matter-of-factly. No, we need to let people go, no hints of potential layoffs. It was as if my team was just a number on his spreadsheet. His voice was completely devoid of emotion as he casually slid a manila folder across the table to me. Inside was a list of my entire department. 26 women whose lives were about to be upended, and a yellow sticky note with a concise message, choose 5 by Thursday. 2 days. I had 48 hours to decide which 5 women would lose their health insurance, their income, their stability. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 37 years old. Until this moment, I had faithfully believed for 8 years that I was a valued director at Westlake Analytics. When Brandon handed me that folder, I nodded professionally. I asked logical questions about severance packages and selection criteria. I maintained eye contact and kept my tone even. I was the perfect corporate soldier, until I returned to my office, closed the door, and silently sobbed into my hands. They were more than just employees to me. There was Ashley, who had just made the down payment on her first house. Tiffany, whose daughter needed specialized medical care. Isabella, who had moved from Argentina for this job and would lose her visa if she were laid off. Each name on that list represented years of shared lunches, jokes, late nights working on reports, and early mornings when someone would bring in coffee to keep everyone going. I stared at the list until the names blurred before my eyes. Who was I to decide their fates? The weight of the responsibility pressed on my chest like a concrete slab. I didn't sleep that night. At 2:14 a.m., I reopened my laptop to review my department's performance metrics again. Maybe there was another way to meet the budget targets without laying people off? As I scrolled through unread emails, I suddenly noticed one subject line. Not for me, I thought, but I saw that I had been accidentally included in the distribution list. Executive compensation package for Q4. Final approval, $8.3 million. My heart sank. As I opened the email, I told myself it was just a company-wide announcement for all employees. But it wasn't. It was a confidential exchange between Brandon, our CFO Megan Davis, and the board of directors. The email detailed how the company had approved an $8.3 million bonus package for 12 top executives, totaling over $690,000 each, and the plan was to pay out these bonuses in the same quarter as the layoffs. The last line of the email read, "Cost-cutting initiatives across all departments will offset the approved compensation package. Please ensure all directors meet their headcount reduction targets." My hands trembled. I wasn't cutting my team to save a struggling company. I was sacrificing them so that Brandon could buy another vacation home. I sat in the dark living room, the blue light from the laptop screen illuminating the tears I hadn't even realized I was shedding. For 8 years, I had worked weekends and missed birthdays. I had canceled dates and therapy appointments to meet deadlines. I had defended company decisions I didn't always agree with because I believed we were all working towards the same goal. What a fool I had been. By morning, my sadness had mutated into something else entirely. A quiet, chilling fury unlike anything I had ever felt before. I went to work that Wednesday with 2 conflicting thoughts. I couldn't sacrifice my team for executive bonuses. But I also couldn't lose my job. The mortgage wouldn't pay itself, and the job market was brutal. Everyone was cutting, not hiring. In the break room, I ran into Zoe, our IT security specialist. We weren't close, but she had once recovered a corrupted file and saved my presentation. She immediately noticed my red eyes. "Emily, are you okay?" she asked with genuine concern. I opened my mouth to say the usual "I'm fine." But instead, a hoarse no escaped. Before I could stop myself, I was telling her about the layoffs, though I omitted the email about the bonuses. Corporate confidentiality was ingrained in us, and even in my state, those instincts were strong. Zoe's face fell. "That's terrible. When do you have to decide?" "Tomorrow." My voice sounded hollow, even to my own ears. She squeezed my hand tightly. "If there's anything I can do." I nodded, not believing anyone could actually make a difference. But as I walked away, I caught myself having a dangerous, risky thought that, once it had taken root, wouldn't let me go. That same day, I called an emergency department meeting. All 26 women crammed into our conference room, sensing something was wrong. I never called last-minute meetings. "I need to share something very unpleasant with you," I began, my voice sounding firmer than I expected. "The company has demanded a 20% reduction in our department staff by the end of this quarter." A horrifying silence filled the room. A silence where everyone stopped breathing at once. Then whispers crept in, eyes widened, and quick calculations began about who had been there the shortest amount of time. "I want to be completely honest with you," I continued. "I've been asked to select 5 people by tomorrow." Isabella covered her mouth in horror. Tears welled up in Tiffany's eyes. Ashley stared straight ahead, her face turning into a mask. "But..." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm not going to do it." Something shifted in the room. Confusion replaced fear. "I learned something that changes everything," I said, choosing my words carefully. I told them about the email, about how the company isn't struggling, about how our jobs are being sacrificed for executive bonuses. I didn't name figures, but I made it clear, this isn't a necessity, it's greed. "I don't have a plan yet," I admitted. "But I refuse to choose 5 of you to sacrifice for the enrichment of executives. I'm asking you for trust and discretion while I figure things out." What happened next still brings a lump to my throat when I remember it. One by one, they nodded. Not a single person got up to leave or made any attempts to report me. The solidarity in that room was so thick you could feel it physically. After everyone had left, Zoe knocked on the conference room door. "I couldn't help but overhear," she said quietly. "About the bonuses." My heart sank. Had I just ruined everything by speaking out? "I believe I can help," she said, glancing over her shoulder and closing the door. "But you need to know. Once we do this, there's no turning back." That night, Zoe and I sat in my living room, surrounded by takeout containers and laptops. What she proposed wasn't technically illegal, but it definitely violated company policy. It would either save my team or get us both fired. The company's quarterly earnings report was just 2 days away. Investors, analysts, and financial reporters would be listening closely. Management would present rosy projections and talk about necessary restructuring, careful to avoid mentioning the bonuses. "The earnings call is a public event," Zoe explained. "But the information about which employees are eligible to access it is kept in our system. We can change that." The plan was audacious. We were going to make sure that every employee in the company, not just select senior managers, received the information to log into the call. Then, we'd anonymously provide key financial reporters with context and leading questions about executive compensation during the restructuring. "If they lie during a public earnings call, that's securities fraud," Zoe stated with confidence. "They won't risk it. They'll either have to deny the existence of the bonuses, which we know isn't true, or admit to them publicly." I poked at my food with my fork, feeling the anxiety rising. This could backfire on us, big time. "Yes," she agreed, unwavering. "But do you have a better idea?" I didn't. By midnight, our plan was set. Zoe would modify the earnings call distribution list to include all employees. I would anonymously contact 3 financial reporters I had worked with for years on press releases and suggest they ask about specific executive compensation packages in the face of mass layoffs. The next morning, on D-Day, Brandon summoned me to his office. "Do you have the names?" he asked, not even bothering with a greeting. I took a deep breath. This was it, my Rubicon. "I need more time," I said, trying to sound calm. "I can't make this decision today." Brandon's face darkened, like a storm cloud rolling across the sky. "This isn't a request, Emily. The deadline is non-negotiable." "I understand, but I assure you I need more time to make an objective assessment of the work." I was stalling, and we both knew it. "Fine, you have until Monday." There was an unmistakable warning in his voice, a final extension. But don't make me regret trusting you with this, Emily. The irony of his words almost made me laugh. Trust. As if they trusted me with the knowledge of the real reason my team was being cut. That same day, Zoe confirmed that she had updated the earnings call distribution list. Every employee would receive the details tomorrow morning. All evening, I drafted carefully worded emails to the 3 financial reporters I had worked with before. No specifics, just a hint that they should inquire about executive compensation packages being approved concurrently with the current restructuring. When I sent the last email, my phone lit up with a message from Zoe: "Everything is set for tomorrow. No turning back." I barely slept that night. At the crack of dawn, I was already dressed and pacing around my apartment, waiting for the workday to begin. Today was the day everything would come to a head. When I walked into the office, the air was electric with tension, but there was a glimmer of hope in it. My team gave me short, supportive nods as I passed by. None of them knew for sure what was planned, but they trusted me. That trust felt like both a gift and a heavy burden. At 9:15 a.m., a company-wide email went out detailing a financial results conference call. Usually, only executives and upper management attended such calls. I watched from my cubicle as employees throughout the building read the email, first with confusion, then with growing interest. At 10:30 a.m., I was summoned to Brandon's office. His face was a thundercloud. "Did you know about this?" He jabbed his tablet at me, the email open on the screen. I feigned confusion. A conference call? I assumed it was intentional transparency during difficult times. He didn't believe me. I could see it, but he couldn't prove my involvement. "We'll get to the bottom of this," he snapped. "And I need those names by Monday. No exceptions." I nodded, leaving his office, my heart pounding in my chest. In the hallway, I ran into Megan from finance, who gave me a suspicious look. They suspected something, but the call was only 3 hours away. It was too late to stop it now. At 1:30 p.m., employees throughout the building began subtly dialing into the earnings conference call. Management was too busy preparing to notice the unusual number of participants. The call began promptly at 2 p.m. Our CEO, Robert Hayes, started with the usual confident preamble about strong positioning and strategic adjustments. Brandon presented the restructuring plan, using sanitized terms like workforce optimization and operational efficiencies. I sat at my desk, headphones on, barely breathing as they opened the call to questions from analysts and members of the media. The first few questions were softball inquiries about market conditions and projected growth. Then came the moment we had all been waiting for. "This is Ethan Lee from the Financial Times," a voice said. "Given the layoffs you just announced, can you comment on reports that Westlake has approved $8.3 million in executive bonus packages for this same quarter?" The silence that hung in the air after that question lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Through the windows of my cubicle, I could see employees lifting their heads from their desks and exchanging glances. Robert cleared his throat. "I'm not sure where you're getting that figure." "I have the same question," another reporter interjected. "Multiple sources are confirming that significant executive compensation packages were approved concurrently with these layoffs. Can you confirm or deny that?" More silence. I could almost physically feel the executives exchanging panicked glances in the conference room. As a matter of standard practice, Robert finally said, his voice tight as a wire. "Executive compensation is determined by the board of directors based on performance metrics, and we don't typically discuss that during earnings conference calls." It wasn't a denial. It couldn't be, it was the truth, and lying would open them up to accusations of securities fraud. But his evasive answer was confirmation enough. A third reporter pressed, "So, to be clear, Westlake Analytics is laying off employees to fund executive bonuses?" "Absolutely not," Robert snapped. But it was too late. The cat was out of the bag. Throughout the building, I saw employees taking off their headphones and talking excitedly to one another. Slack channels were blowing up. The secret was out. By 3 p.m., Brandon was already marching toward my cubicle. His face was contorted with a barely contained rage. He slammed the door so hard the blinds rattled against the glass. Brandon's face was red, veins bulging in his temples. "What the hell have you done?" he hissed through clenched teeth. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding, but my voice remained even. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play coy, Emily. Those reporters knew exact figures. Someone leaked confidential information, and everyone in this building just heard it." I just stared back at him in silence. 8 years of stifling my own opinions, nodding along, smiling, and playing the part of a good corporate soldier. All of that ended in that very moment. His fierce glare no longer intimidated me. "The CEO wants to see everyone involved in the conference room, now." He loomed over my desk, trying to suppress me with his height. "This is grounds for termination. Hell, this could be a criminal offense." "I'll be there shortly," I replied calmly. As soon as he stormed out of the office, my phone lit up with a message from Zoe. "They're checking email logs. Hang in there." My hands should have been shaking, but strangely, I felt more confident than I had in days. The worst they could do was fire me. And I had accepted that possibility the moment Zoe and I came up with our plan. In the hallway, employee chatter died down as I walked by. Some averted their eyes, others shot me barely perceptible nods of support. They knew what was up. When executives are in a panic, news spreads through an office like wildfire. When I entered the conference room, 6 people were already waiting. Robert, Brandon, Megan from finance, 2 board members I recognized from company photos, and a woman I assumed was legal counsel. Their faces were like thunder. "Sit down, Emily," Robert said, gesturing to a lone chair positioned opposite their side of the table. A clear power play, to force me to face the firing squad alone. I sat down, folded my hands on the table, and waited. "There was an unauthorized leak of confidential information regarding a phone call this morning," Robert began, his voice cold as ice, "and somehow reporters knew to ask about executive compensation packages, specifically the $8.3 million one." He paused, expecting me to break the silence. I wasn't going to. "Given your reluctance to comply with the reduction mandate and the fact that you were one of the few with access to this information, we have reason to believe you are involved." Megan placed a printout on the table. The email distribution list was modified yesterday at 8:42 p.m. It all came down to an authorization code. I glanced at the sheet. It was a system access log with my credentials. "And why shouldn't I terminate you right now?" Robert hissed. I took a deep breath. The moment of truth. "You are certainly within your rights to terminate me," I said, surprising myself with my own composure. "But before you do, I think we should discuss what happens next." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, the very manila folder with the list of layoffs that Brandon had given me. "3 things are going to happen today," I continued. "First, you will announce that there will be no reductions in my department." Brandon scoffed. "You're not in a position to make demands." "Second," I continued, as if I hadn't heard him, "you will reverse that executive compensation package and redirect those funds to the departments facing cuts." "That's absurd," Megan interjected. "The board has already." "And third," I interrupted, opening the folder, "you will provide written assurance that there will be no repercussions against me or anyone else involved in today's events." The legal counsel leaned forward. "Ms. Carter, are you admitting to leaking confidential information?" "I'm stating facts about what needs to happen next," I replied, my voice steady. "And here are a few more facts." I pulled 3 documents from the folder and laid them on the table. "This is the email about the executive bonus package that was mistakenly sent to me. This is a certified copy of that email with a timestamp that I had made. And this," I said, placing the 3rd document in front of them, "is a draft of a statement I prepared for social media and several journalist acquaintances, detailing how Westlake Analytics decided to lay off employees to fund executive bonuses during an economic downturn." The room fell into dead silence. You wouldn't dare, Megan whispered, her eyes wide with horror. I've spent 2 days in this building trying to decide which members of my team to decimate while you people were divvying up million-dollar bonuses, I said, the pent-up desperation finally breaking through in my voice. So, yes, I absolutely would dare. Robert's face instantly changed color, from crimson to deathly pale. This will tank our stock. Possibly, I agreed, trying to maintain my composure. And I wouldn't want that to happen. I have friends who work here whose retirement accounts will suffer. But I have 26 women in my department who don't deserve to lose their jobs just so you can add another comma to your bank accounts. The legal counsel whispered something to Robert. He nodded curtly, his brow furrowed. What exactly are you proposing? He asked, his eyes boring into me. As I said, no layoffs in my department. Divert the bonuses to the production department. And no repercussions for me. I held his gaze. In exchange, this whole situation stays within the confines of today's conference. No further leaks, no social media, no journalists. Brandon slammed his fist on the table, his face turning purple with rage. That's outright blackmail. The lawyer shot him a warning look. It's negotiation, she corrected gently. Robert studied me for a long moment, as if trying to decipher my thoughts. And if we refuse? I began gathering my documents into my briefcase, my movements deliberate. Then I'll simply walk out that door, release my statement to the press, and let the public decide if they want to invest in or buy products from a company with such skewed priorities. In agonizing anticipation, I spent 15 minutes outside the room while they conferred. Alone in the hallway, I felt my legs begin to tremble. What had I done? This could still turn into a disaster. Ashley passed by, giving me a questioning look. I managed a brief nod, hoping it conveyed both I've got this and I'm scared shitless. When I was called back in, Robert's face was unreadable. We've discussed your proposal, he said dryly. The board agrees that the layoffs may have been premature. We're freezing the current restructuring plan pending further review. I waited. It wasn't enough. Megan sighed heavily. The executive compensation package will be reduced and partially reallocated to operational budgets. Fully reallocated, I countered. Robert's jaw tightened, but he nodded. And there will be no repercussions for you or anyone else involved in today's incident. I need that in writing, I stated. The lawyers will draft a document. He leaned forward. Understand this, Emily. Your career advancement at this company ends today. You'll remain in your current position. Your team stays intact, but that's all you'll get from us. It was a fair trade, my career for my team's security. I understand, I replied, trying not to betray the turmoil raging inside. As I turned to leave, Robert added, his voice laced with venom, the corporation has been publicly embarrassed today. And that, one way or another, doesn't go unpunished. The thread hung in the air like a sword of Damocles as I left the office. By 5 o'clock, a company-wide email announced that the planned restructuring was being postponed indefinitely. No mention of the bonuses, no acknowledgement of the disastrous earnings report, just dry corporate language that translated to, we're backing down, but we're not admitting it. I gathered my team in the conference room to share the news. There will be no layoffs, I announced. Your jobs are safe. The relief in the room was almost palpable. Tiffany even teared up. Isabella grabbed my hand and squeezed it so hard it hurt. What did you do? Ashley asked quietly, her eyes filled with disbelief and admiration. I shook my head, trying to appear calm. I can't go into details, but it's been resolved. They didn't push back. Maybe they didn't want to know too much. Maybe they already suspected. The point is, they are safe. As everyone was leaving, Brittany, the new girl, lingered by the door. Whatever you did, she whispered, thank you. That simple gratitude almost broke me. Later, Zoe found me in my office and quietly closed the door behind her. They've been in damage control all day. She reported that shares dipped a bit after the call but are already stabilizing. Social media is blowing up over the bonus question and your evasive answer. Did they trace anything? I asked. She shook her head. I covered your tracks. They found your credentials and the distribution list changed because that's what I wanted. Just enough evidence to confirm their narrative, but not enough to implicate anyone else. I stared at her, stunned. You framed me to take the fall? I framed you to have all the leverage, she corrected. They found exactly what I wanted them to find. No more, no less. Sleep eluded me again that night, but for entirely different reasons. I had stood up to management, well, almost. My team was safe. The obscene bonuses would be redirected. But Robert's warning echoed in my mind, this won't go unpunished. I knew exactly what he meant. I would be watched now. Every minor mistake documented, every deadline scrutinized. They would begin building a case for my termination, one that had nothing to do with today. It might take months, maybe even a year, but eventually, they'd find a way to get rid of me. The question was, did I even want to stay? The answer came 2 days later. A client I'd worked with for years, Valerie Johnson, called me directly, bypassing the usual channels. Emily, she said, I heard something interesting during your company's earnings call. My stomach dropped. Oh. I've been in corporate America long enough to read between the lines of that semi-denial about executive bonuses during layoffs, she paused. I can't believe someone had the nerve to bring that up, I thought. I remained silent as she continued, my company is expanding its analytics division. We need someone with integrity to lead the team. Someone who puts people first. The salary for this position is 30% higher than what you're currently making, based on industry averages. I gripped the phone tighter. Are you offering me a job, Valerie? I asked, hardly believing my ears. I'm offering you a formal interview. The job is yours if you want it, she replied, a soft note in her voice. And, Emily, you can bring your entire team with you, every single one of them. A month later, I sat in the almost empty Westlake office, packing the last of my personal belongings into a cardboard box. 19 members of my team had accepted job offers from Valerie's company. The other 7 had taken advantage of the restructuring freeze to find jobs elsewhere, armed with glowing recommendations from me. Brandon appeared in the doorway, watching me with narrowed eyes. You won't last there, he spat. They'll see what we see. Your disloyalty. I carefully wrapped a framed photo in tissue paper, a group shot of my team from last year's Christmas party. What you call disloyalty, I said, without looking up, Valerie calls integrity. It's all a matter of perspective. You're burning bridges you can't rebuild. I finally met his gaze. Brandon, some bridges need to be burned. Some connections aren't worth maintaining. Carrying the box through the office, past the empty desks where my team used to sit, I felt lighter than I had in years. I'd lost something here. Security, certainty, the comfort of the familiar. But I'd gained something far more valuable. The knowledge that I could stand up for what was right, even when it scared me half to death. Zoe was waiting for me in the parking lot by my car. She'd accepted a senior security specialist position at Valerie's company. Ready for the next chapter? She asked, helping me load the box. More than ready. I took one last look at the Westlake building. You know, I never thought I was capable of something this risky. Most people don't, she replied, until they're faced with a choice they can't live with. 6 months later, our new team gathered for a strategic planning session. Looking around the room at the familiar faces, Ashley, Tiffany, Isabella, and the others, I felt something I hadn't felt at Westlake in years. Genuine pride. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. During a break, I checked my phone and saw a news alert about Westlake Analytics. Their stock had plummeted 40% after 2 consecutive quarters of missed projections. The article mentioned that several key client relationships had soured in the wake of the personnel changes. It didn't surprise me. When you treat people like disposable assets, you eventually dispose of your company's future. Our clients had followed us not because of the brand, but because of the relationships we'd built. Relationships Westlake had been willing to sacrifice for short-term executive enrichment. Valerie appeared in the conference room doorway. "How's the team doing?" "We're 17% ahead of projections," I replied. "Turns out, retaining talented employees and treating them well is good for business." She smiled. Revolutionary concept. That evening, standing on my balcony watching the sunset, I reflected on the past 6 months. I'd gone from crying in my office over an impossible choice to leading a thriving team at a company that valued us. The journey hadn't been easy. There were panic attacks, sleepless nights, and moments of agonizing self-doubt. But I discovered something new about myself in that Westlake conference room when I stood up to the executives who thought they held all the power. I'd found my voice. Not just for myself, but for the 26 other women who deserved better. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. Sometimes, it's simply refusing to participate in your own destruction and helping others do the same. My phone buzzed with a message from Zoe. "Heard Brandon got fired today." Restructuring. Ironic, isn't it? I chuckled to myself. Not revenge, but justice. The corporate world had convinced me that power only flows in one direction, downward, from the executives to those they deem expendable. But we proved that wrong. When we stand together, when we refuse to be pawns in someone else's game, the flow of power reverses. So, if you're watching this video now and facing an impossible choice, remember my story. Remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply say no and stand by your word.